so perhaps I don't need to fix it again. So I'm just going to assume that I have actually fixed this thing, because I'm not seeing it anymore. And I think I would have run into it by now. So we're going to return that garbage collection purge time to the right amount, and then gracefully exit this thing. Also going to change my startup settings here. So let's see, maps and modes. Game default startup is going to be this. Let's do the grasslands. He's got some cool thumbnails here that he's set up for everything. Grasslands 2406, where are you? I like how I literally cannot see it. It's just staring me in the face pretty much. Yeah, I'm seeing this. The other thing that's happening is this pop-in with the landscape grid square stuff. So that's the other thing I want to take a look at. So if we go to this thing, so I think it was the LOD stuff that was going on with the pop in and out of the landscape there. Because I'm not seeing it pop in and out anymore. And the place where we were was over here. We're under the ground. No. Yeah, there's no pop in or pop out with any of that, so that's looking pretty good. Alright, cool. Well, I think we've got that sorted then. I think this level is fine, so let's go ahead and make sure to check that in. Nice, this is fixing animation issues with scaling of objects. Fixing LOD on landscape so it doesn't pop in out. Oh yeah, the other thing I need to look at here is the look into the post-processing shadow line. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about. If you're talking about the landscape there, the automatic rendering which stops rendering character behind an object, it's obvious that we can see that grid square, otherwise we wouldn't see it pop in and out. It's using the 3D math. It's a perspective camera, and the only thing obscuring it would be some of that like landscape stuff, and all the rest of it they're 3D objects, because they're quote unquote 2D. You know, the sprites are 2D, but when they're actually being drawn in there, they're actually like quads and everything else. So they're all 3D geometry. So there shouldn't be any difference between the 2D and 3D objects when they're actually in the world. Eye flicker? Your artist. I mean, you can call him by name. But yeah, the eye flicker. I'm not really sure what you mean. Is that the texture streaming stuff where it's all fuzzy on the first thing? That's really just streaming settings and everything. Or the eye flicker is the like that bloom right there. And that's going to be mathematical imprecision with the bloom stuff. Alright, so we have this hard line here that is occurring with something. The character's eyes in the grass. Do I need to zoom way far in to see it, or is it when he's turning his head? Oh, so it's like when you're moving through the grass that it looks all weird. That's probably because you have a high contrast object, which is like Unreal has all that like pixel velocity crap that it throws in there into the final shader. So if it's really small on screen, you're gonna get lost and washed out. Well, I'll have to just talk to him about what he sees there. I should concentrate on things that I can actually look at and fix. So we have this distance, and it's the post-processing stuff. Alright, so this is the one we've got. So if we don't have anything on, we do see some stuff regardless. Now, what is going on there? What is that line that is happening? Well, let's turn stuff off until So it's not the fog. Yeah, it looks like it affects... Yeah, this looks like shadows, doesn't it? So let's see. It's going to be this sky sphere. Yeah, so it's going to be our shadow stuff here. Alright, so we have our shadow settings there. The dynamic shadow map distance and number of shadow map cascades. We put it at 8. So we can just turn off shadow mapping entirely, which makes everything look awful. Well, let me see what I've got set up for the cave. Yeah, I've got everything defaulted here. Value of 0 disables the dynamic shadow. Alright, I'm gonna edit this Skysphere blueprint. I want to see what the default for this light is. The default is usually 20,000? Gosh, it's hard to see these numbers because there's no commas or anything. The zeros all just washed out. So normally it's 20,000, and I set it to 200,000. Well, let's take a look. How far is far away here? So that mountain is at 9,000, supposedly. Maybe this other thing is in centimeters as well. If it's in centimeters, then 200,000 is definitely a long ways away. So let's look this up real quick. The max supported value on a movable light should be 20,000 units. However, you will sacrifice cascade resolution as well, so it's a trade-off. Alright, so there was like a shadow radius threshold? Okay, so there's like all sorts of stuff that you can screw around with shadows. Okay, so there are like shadow settings that I can go play with in the INI files, maybe, that aren't available for everything? Where is this INI file? Let's see if there's shadow stuff. So we've got base light mass, number of shadow rays, scalability. Alright, so we've got, because some of these things that are looking at are like texels per pixel. These are just shadow qualities. Max light map radius, 10,000, allow streaming light maps, use dynamic streaming, boost player textures. So this is where all the lighting stuff is supposed to be. But I don't really see anything. Alright, so I think this file here, I need to change some stuff. So supposedly the shadow radius threshold really changes how, like, it greatly increases shadow visibility at far camera distances. Let's just change all of them to 0.1. And the other thing I want to look at is the units for dynamic shadow distance, movable light. Value of 0 disables it. Well, maybe I can mess with this stuff. Alright, so this thing is set to movable. So it's probably a combination here of things not being set. Like, the landscape is a stationary object, but then we have movable lights on here. Because we still have, there's some stuff baked in there with the lights is what it looks like, and it's not baked in for everything, it's just baked in for a specific thing. Maybe if we have a static object here, this is static, we just make all this stuff static. And obviously we need to rebuild the lighting. What does that say? That like says something. Preview. Alright. Well, let's build everything here. So I probably need to write down some notes on some of this. So let's see if changing this to static and building the lighting with a static object does anything for us good. So we'll just hang out in this forest while we're building all the lighting. You're off to finish your stuff? Alright, Chris Goku2, good luck. Go finish all the things. Alright, so lighting build is complete. Four files need to be checked out. Alright, let's check out all of them then. Well, we totally lost our sun. Yeah, so we're getting all sorts of shenaniganry happening with moving the sky sphere. So what have I done here? So I'm trying to look at where these lines are. Alright, so there are multiple lines. Wow, okay. Alright, so this has something to do with other stuff entirely. Interesting. Okay, so this has nothing to do with shadows. Well, let's start Googling stuff with this post-processing. I think I need to revert files for some of those. Because I'm not happy with how some of this looks, so I'm going to revert some of this. Alright, so what is it? Post-processing distance issues, Unreal? Alright, so we reverted stuff. Alright, and that's what we're looking at, is this hard line. Okay, so we have unbound. Where the bounds of the volume maintain have true the values of the entire world, regardless of bounds, of false only effect within its bounds. Alright. Influence, 0 is 1. Alright, 0 is no effect. Alright, so what exactly is going on here? We have a bloom of 2, so that's going to be lighting. Okay, so he has a post-processing shader thing. So we've got the color, diffuse color, scene depth, divide by a certain thing, then do desaturate. Well, this isn't gonna. This is gonna lose precision. Like, you can't have a number that large in here to. Like, this isn't gonna work. Yeah, I'm back doing actual streaming because I'm not just doing a whole bunch of network stuff. See, I think what's going on with this material, with these lines, is that math is breaking down inside of this right here, because you can't divide by that gigantic freaking number like that. Like, math just doesn't work that way inside of shaders. So I'm trying to look at this material and see exactly what is going on. Alright, so let's see, where are we actually using the scene depth? The only place I think we're using the scene depth is right here. And here. Custom depth. What is this? Scene depth, single channel, contains the linear depth of the opaque objects rendered with custom depth, a mesh property. Oh, why don't we just hook like a constant up to here instead of some of these things. Oh yeah, so definitely has to do with the scene depth. As you can see here, we don't have a hard line anymore going in here. So the reason we're having those hard lines is actually because of some sort of scene depth thing. Which has been getting applied to this. So I think it has to do with, God, I wish, is Adam even on or anything like that? No. I'm not sure what he was trying to do with this, because we've got like this skybox color coming on here, and what was happening, at least what I can tell, is that the material that this thing is using is taking the scene depth for these things, and it's switching between using the skybox and using, like, we have this skybox color here just getting slotted into the emissive. Like, we've got this if else here, which is doing nothing as well. Like, so what we've got here is if the scene depth is greater than 100,000, then we're going to use this post-process input 1, which I'm not really sure what that is. Post-process input 0, is that this thing, or? I'm guessing that we have like this if statement here, which is doing stuff based on the scene depth. If the scene depth is greater than a certain thing, it's doing what it's grabbing a different value, but it's just like a hard if. There's no transition or anything. It's just like, well, if scene depth is greater than 100,000, then let's. And like, what the hell is this desaturation here? It's getting the color. I think what we should be doing is just plugging it in there. I think that's what he was trying to do. I think that's what he's trying to do. It's just that sort of thing. Yeah, so I think it's just the material that he had for the base was just toast. So I'll send him that message. And looks like it was simpler than I believe it could have been otherwise. So I'll leave a little little comment right here. And then I'll throw this constant out here, which is like how if there's a comma in there, it doesn't parse it. This is the max distance for the effect before we apply the skybox color instead. Hello, Nils Noah. I am working on random bugs and stuff like that today, which Adam had kind of a grab bag of stuff that's screwed up, so I'm messing around with that. And this one, I'm just kind of leaving him some notes here about why his post-processing stuff. Sorry, Nils Noah, you're gonna have to PM me any links. Because I automatically delete them. Alright, so I'll just make sure to send him a message real quick. I need to write it up. Alright, so I added some comments to m_ppd grasslands 01 and bypassed the distance known. Also fix the scales. Bitey no longer. No, right, cool. You'll get that message. So this is what you've been working on. So you have a whole bunch of stuff, and then you've got some specular, some shadows, I'm guessing, and some lighting going on. Very cool. There's also an extremely high resolution picture. And it looks like, yeah, if you zoom in, there's a whole bunch of pixels. Like you can see kind of the edges of those shadows are, there's a whole bunch, it looks like the spray can from MS Paint going on. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. That's what the resolution's for. So what exactly is that rendered in, and what are you working on for that? Alright, so I'm going to apply all this stuff. I'm going to save it. That's in Java? Interesting. So that's like an OpenGL shader in your Java stuff? Or you rendered that out as like a static rendered image after you did all the computations? Alright, so I'm going to save this, check in the stuff there as an image. Oh, that's pretty cool. So you did all the shadow stuff kind of using like ray trace calculations and stuff like that, and then wrote it out. That is not always the simplest thing to do. You did it in school? Yeah, it looks like something you do with the school assignment. I remember doing a lot of that. Though we weren't using Java, we were using C++ and HLSL, or fragment shaders. Alright, cool. So we got that rolling along. Multi-tool devs. Well, I've been working quite a bit in Java here over the past couple of weeks. I set up this whole platform service stack that we got going on. So what I can do in the game now is I can actually log in. I'd like to have gone into a game dev course, but that's another school and it's further away. Yeah, game dev is its own monster. Yeah, one of the things here I can do login now. So we've got like our locally hosted server page here, so I can like connect with Twitch, log in, and I am now fully connected to this thing. And you can see down here we've got like our client is registered and connected and all that cool stuff. So we've actually got like full duplex communication with the backend platform. It's all secured and everything. So fun times with that sort of thing. Basically, they're the same except they use C++ and you use Java. They did a bit more with PCs actually doing how to optimize things. Yeah, I mean that's makes a lot of sense. Though I'm surprised you're still learning Java. I mean, I would assume are they mixing in C# there as well? Because I don't know, for game dev, pretty much all the tools, at least a lot of the tools people write are like C# stuff. Java tools are not usually used unless you've got like some dudes who do a lot of service work or something else there, because pretty much the skill set for game developers is usually C, C++, and C#. Application dev and mobile, yeah, that's going to be all Java land, isn't it? So that's going to be Java. Well, I did Java work for servers for like 8 years, so I really liked Java for service work. It just, I don't know, it just kind of works. I absolutely hate Java developers though. Like, there's so much stupid crap that Java developers use as like quote unquote best practices. You like JavaScript? It's JavaScript all the way down. God, okay. So one of the things I was looking at was with my relay stuff. I wanted to see what this touch client registration. I've got memcache, and I've also got. Okay, so we never actually used touch client registration. You like variables with or without types? I really don't like typeless variables. I absolutely think strongly typed things would help make something work a lot better. Like at a certain scale of code, I find you always forget what the hell everything is. So I think it's real important. But you know, like everybody's got their own preferences for stuff. Just there's been too many times where I have like some developer who like tries to, like, I think one of them was, we had a config system and like this guy had put like a string in for something that he expected to be a number later, and he was just like blaming my config system that it was returning like a 0. And I was like, dude, you put this string in there, like he had actually put in like an actual like letters and shit, and I was like, that's not a goddamn number, dude. It's gonna return 0 because that's its best guess of what the hell you wrote in there. And you know, if it was a type system, that would have just been a compile error. You know, with the configs. Alright, so this try-touch client reg doesn't matter. Do we ever use... Well, how do we actually mess with this cache client? Because what I've got is... Yeah, wrecked. There's been a lot of wreckage. Like, I found that a lot of... It's amazing, like, when I was in college, I was always like, man, how do game studios, like, not get games finished? Like, actually getting all your shit together and working, it's just hard work. It's pretty funny, after being in the game industry, you're like, well, how the fuck does anything get shipped? Everybody's like a giant douchebag, and you know, like, everybody's got different opinions, and just everything is screwed up all the time. Except for some teams, which are always awesome. Alright, so I'm looking at the client registration. So how do we actually interact with this? We have get client registration, we have delete client reg, touch client reg. Alright, so save client registration. We save the client registration when we send a message and we read it from the database. We're going to save it for 300 seconds, so that's like 5 minutes. Alright, cool. Okay, so we don't have to worry about this. It's not happy, fun Rainbow Land. And yeah, you definitely are going to have a hard time breaking into the game industry with Java skills, unless you